Here we are gathered in this circle of community, gathered here to breathe, here to witness, here to share, here to celebrate, here to contemplate, here to grow, here to love. In this circle of community, we gather to learn more about ourselves, to offer compassion to one another, and to be ready to face our world, which is so in need of our hope, our joy, and our spirit. So in this moment, as we breathe and listen to the sound of the bowl, we acknowledge the generations of people who have sat as we sit, who gathered with faith and determination, who gathered with questions, celebrations, sorrows. In this moment, we breathe and listen and know we are one strand in the many-layered cloth of this community. A long time ago, in a place by the sea that I used to go as a child, I was given a blanket. I think I've shared its description with you before, but I will do so again this morning. It was woven, hand woven by a crafter preserving ancient ways, and I first saw it hanging like a sheet on a line to dry, advertising its own beauty into the world. Like a riverbed in which soil and slippery stone, cool water and persistent mosses commingled to create an astonishing array of blues, greens, browns, and grays, the blanket seemed to move, seemed to speak, the soft babble of flowing water crashing into the silence of time. Simple and yet intricate, its colorful strands move in and around each other, drawn through by hands that mastered rhythms taught by generations of artists, each bringing a new depth to this object made to comfort, made to sustain, made with love and given with love, made for warmth and for use. At each end of this blanket, the tassels run long, a reminder of the uncountable threads that come together to weave a single strong blanket. At each end, one can separate the colors, discern each one and imagine its unique story. The brown may be spun from wool of sheep across the ocean, the gray perhaps from South America, or the blue maybe from a nearby farm. Each has a story, though its entirety is not known. Just as below the running river that springs from the earth or flows down from the clouds, each rock bears a tale of generations, of time before time. So too, each strand hand-woven and the hands that do the weaving tell a tale. Each set of hands, each heart, weaving and woven holds a story, a history, memories and dreams formed by life, buffeted by pain, polished by love, each one different and special, whispering its truth, adding to the unspeakably beautiful sound of life. We are not alone. We sit together in this way this morning to affirm that even more. We are not alone, though sometimes we forget that truth. We are woven into one cloth, one gorgeous blanket designed for use, for comfort, to sustain, and to love. And each and every day, the world itself advertises the potential of our shared beauty. In this moment here together, We remember that we are woven and we are the weavers, each of us rooted in generations stretching toward the future, held by communities and beholden to them, seeking wholeness and sought by life's desire for itself, loving the world and beloved so much more than we realize. Part of the web, the beautiful blanket of creation. It is so good to be here with you this morning, each of us a unique strand in the life of this community.
Our first reading is an excerpt from On Going to Church by the Reverend A. Powell Davies. Reverend Davies was a minister down in the Washington, D.C. area and helped spread Unitarian Universalism there in the mid-20th century. His work uses the term church, although for many of us that term doesn't resonate. Rather than attempt to change his language, we ask you to sub in whatever word works for you: community, congregation, society. Reverend Davies writes, "I come to church and would whether I was a preacher or not, because I fall below my own standards and need to constantly be brought back to them. It is not enough that I should think about the world and its problems at the level of a newspaper report or a magazine discussion. I must have my conscience sharpened until it goads me to the most thorough and responsible thinking of which I am capable. I need to be reminded that there are things I must do in the world, unselfish things, things undertaken at the level of idealism. Workaday enthusiasms are not enough. They wear out too soon. I want to experience human nature at its best and be reminded of its highest possibilities. And this happens to me in church. We meet each other as friends and neighbors anywhere and everywhere, but we seldom do so in the consciousness of our soul's deepest yearnings. But in church, we do, in a way that protects us from all that is intrusive, yet leaves us knowing that we all have the same yearning, the same spiritual loneliness, the same need of assurance and faith and hope. We are not merely an audience, we are a congregation. I doubt whether I could stand the thought of the cruelty and misery of the present world unless I could know, through an experience that renewed itself over and over again, that at the heart of life there is assurance, that I can hold an ultimate belief that all is well. And this happens in church. Life must have its sacred moments and its holy places. The soul will always seek its nurture. For religious experience, which is life at its most intense, life at its best, is something we cannot do without."
This morning, we are considering why we do this. Like, why are you here? Why am I here? Why do we come together on Sunday mornings, on Zoom for committee meetings on a Tuesday night? Why are we making dinner for another family and bringing it by? Why are we picking up weeds outside of our buildings, running the AV, putting on skits, teaching each other's children, and so many of the other things that we gather to do under this name of the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. Why? Today we're asking ourselves why, and we're exploring 3 different levels of that question. Why does this coming together matter for us as individuals? Why does it matter for those around us in the sort of immediate sense? And why does it matter for this much wider world that we share? So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is some sharing, because I love it. And it's very conducive in this particular arrangement. What I'm going to ask you to do is to briefly reflect with someone nearby, ideally someone you don't know super well, about what participation here has given you. And let me be clear, you can always opt out if you just want to sit and reflect in your own mind. That is totally fine. No one's going to judge you for it. But I want to be really clear. You're going to reflect on what participation here has given you as an individual, not what it has given your children, not what justice work it has brought you to, but what it has enabled you, right? What has it allowed for, encouraged in yourself, your spirituality, your understanding of yourself, things like that, okay? I'm giving you parameters. And when the sharing time is done, I will bring the bowl and that will bring us back together, okay? Please. Too loud. Okay, I'm not gonna let you report back in full sentences, but if anyone's got like 1 or 2 words that they wanna like share out, you can just call it out. Freedom to think and believe what you will. Community. What was that? The spiritual. Safely held. Hope. Belonging. Reaching out. Inclusivity. Becoming the best version of yourself. Yeah. Independent thinking, being encouraged to independent thinking. Not patriarchal. That's a good one. We all endorse that. Sorry? Authenticity. Authenticity. Being in this community, being in a community like this, brings so many gifts. Maybe you have learned to sit quietly with yourself in a way that you were not so good at before. Maybe you have learned to practice compassion and expand your patience. Maybe you have learned to pay attention to your breathing in hard moments. Maybe you have been exposed to new ideas that have broadened your knowledge. Maybe you've learned to sing without fear or lead in ways that you didn't know you could. Perhaps you have been reminded of your belovedness when you needed it most. Or maybe you have learned, perhaps for the first time, that you, your whole self, is beautiful and worthy of celebration. There are so many gifts to be had in this community, and each of us, through our participation here, has grown, changed, learned, and found a place to belong. Today, I'm going to ask you to come into our time of meditation and prayer with all of that in mind, and we're going to take this moment in our service this morning as a time for gratitude. So I'll ask you to find as comfortable a position as you can for your unique body, and to just be present in this moment, letting yourself breathe, just in and out. And remember in this moment all the ways that you, your being, your heart has been moved, changed, nurtured by your presence here. In the quiet of the morning, we give thanks. We give thanks for those who built this place of welcome and care. We give thanks for each of us here who continues to shape and grow this community. We give thanks for all those who will come after, who will take this place and its spirit into the future. As we sit in silence together, we offer the gratitude of our own hearts into this shared space. Take a breath. And another. We give thanks for all the ways that this community has strengthened us, taught us hope, given us. We give thanks for the comfort of quiet, for the companionship of song, for the dancing of our spirits, for the words offered when we ourselves have none. Thank you, for your being, for your presence, for your love, for your life. May we be grateful each day for one another. So may it be. Our second reading this morning, as we move into some consideration of why we are here as regards one another, this second reading is by Victoria Safford, and it's titled, "Why Do You Come, John?" I knew a man once who came to church every Sunday. You may find nothing remarkable in this, but think of it, a man who came every single Sunday, and it was not that he lacked other things to do. I knew him only in the last years of his life, a birthright Unitarian, a retired geologist who, when he was not at church, was a volunteer for Amnesty International, for the local food bank, for the American Civil Liberties Union, for the Family Planning Clinic, the AIDS Project, for the Unitarian Universalist District, which we were a part of, for the Audubon Society, and for a splendid community chorus. Busier than any of us still holding full-time jobs, he was committed, effective, clear about what he could and would, and by his own standards, should contribute to the causes that he cared for, the world and the people that he cared for. But what set him apart from all of us was that he came every single Sunday, and because of his hearing loss more than any sense of his own importance, he sat in the front row. Why do you come, John? In all kinds of weather, when you're well and when you're not, when you like the guest speaker and when you know you won't. Why do you come every Sunday? I asked him not long before he died. His answer was straightforward. I come, he said, because somebody might miss me if I didn't. He said it in a way not arrogant at all, but honestly. He was the kind of person who saw it as his duty and his privilege to welcome newcomers on Sunday morning, not because he needed more friends himself. The man was 80 years old with a lifetime of friends and colleagues and acquaintances to spare. He had plenty of friends already, more than he could handle. He did not come because he wanted to evangelize the visitors or grow the church. On the contrary, he loved and missed the tiny congregation he joined in 1955. He felt a little lost with so many new faces, a little sad at all the changes. He greeted people as they came and steered them toward the minister, the coffee pot, the Sunday school, the guest book, the pledge cards, the sign-up sheets, because he felt it was the right and only thing to do. When people come into your home, you welcome them as if nothing in that moment matters more. He worked hard on Sunday mornings. He got up Sundays expecting to work hard to make others feel at home. He came with that in mind, and he was right. After he died, we missed him when he didn't come. And do you know what happened? The Sunday after his memorial, someone new who'd never met John Eric and now would never have the chance, someone new walked right in and sat down in his empty place in that front row. The whole family just sat right down as if they owned the place, as if they had every right to be there, as if we were glad to see them. Two women new to town and their toddler and their baby, they came in hoping there was room, and John himself would have been delighted. I love this reading. I think it so helpfully captures that move out beyond ourselves, that first move past what do we get from being in community. Congregational life gives us so much as individuals, a necessary place to think and wonder and feel, and also importantly, a place to be seen and known and loved for ourselves. But it also gives us a place to see and know and love others. It challenges us to take seriously committed community. It challenges us to grow our patience and our care for one another. And it asks us to involve ourselves not only in bettering this immediate community that we've created together, but also the ones in which we live out beyond our walls. And I want to share with you this morning a story about this congregation. And it's a story that many of you in this room know. In fact, there are people in this room who could tell the story much better than I can, so ask them about it later. But I suspect there are people who've never heard it, who do not know, and I think it's a story worth telling. And much of what I'm about to say, and I promise it's not too long, but much of what I'm about to say is actually found in the book Unitarians in Ridgewood by Doris Armstrong, which if you haven't ever seen it, is a history of this congregation written to celebrate its centennial. So it was at this point 30 some odd years ago that this book was written. But it recounts that in the 1970s, this congregation began to address the question of aging, began to concern itself with this question, and in particular, the question of aging in place in a community like Ridgewood, which was and remains in many ways built for families and folks in their prime income earning years, right? In 1974, a committee on aging was formed in this congregation that worked to address the needs of the aging population that was here. The Senior Action Committee, as it was later known, came to take a specific interest in the question of housing. In April of 1979, Bill Scanlon, Barbara Anderson, Roberta Svar, and Sharon Huber conducted a lay service, sharing their experiences around working in this area of senior housing. As Doris Armstrong puts it, quote, "Thus began Shared Housing Association of Ridgewood and Environs, a not-for-profit corporation to create and operate a residence, the Cottage Place, providing shared housing for 8 elderly people," end quote. From this congregation's interest, care, and concern for both those within these walls and those beyond these walls facing the same challenges, an organization, SHARE, was born that to this day serves our community. The Cottage Place residence, which is right across the street, if you do not know, was opened in November of 1982 through the hard work and dedication and contributions and passions of members of this congregation and others who joined into their vision. So many people made that house a reality, and the names I'm going to read to you will be known to some of you and not to others, and it's not an exhaustive list. But among them, as recounted by Doris Armstrong, were Mary Brett, Judy Collins, Jane Dipavine, Jack Hawkins, Lee Regal, Jack Ritter, June Ritter, and Al Webster. In 1988, an addition made that house capable of holding a total of 14 residents. And in 1998, a second house, which accommodates an additional 14 residents, was built on Prospect Street. Is there anyone who didn't ever know this story in this room? Okay, great. See, we're learning new things about our congregation. The houses provide affordable room and board in a shared independent living situation, allowing folks 55 plus to age in place in Ridgewood and not have to leave their communities and their people. Although SHARE is an independent organization, its roots run deep in this congregation, and over the years, so many members here have served on their board, helped with meals or events, supported individual residents in a variety of ways, and kept strong the tie between this congregation and that vital organization that enables folks to stay where they want to stay. If you've been involved with SHARE at all, can you just raise your hand? I'm curious how many people in the room. Okay. The story of SHARE is a success story of how a few passionate people, connected by purpose and supported by a congregation, can have a lasting impact outside these walls. Yes, we care for each other here, recognizing the needs and the hopes within this circle, but we also work to make life better in the other circles we belong to. The lessons that we learn here about authenticity and patience and compassion, about organizing and leadership and getting stuff done, those are lessons that we take out there into our workplaces, into our schools, our friend groups, our towns, our villages. These are lessons that help us have a real impact on the people we know and love and live amongst. The story of SHARE is only one story in the life of this congregation and the work that it has done and the lives that it has touched. Our shared hope is that we will continue to be able to do this kind of work, have this kind of impact for generations to come. Poem, Marge Piercy writes that with 4 you can play bridge and start an organization, and with 6 you can eat pie and no leftovers. 12 make a demonstration, 100 fill a hall, and on and on. Institutions matter. Organizations matter. They matter for the individuals who participate in them, for those directly impacted by them, but they also matter in ways that we don't necessarily know. And Unitarian Universalist congregations matter, I think, in a particular kind of way. Here, so many of you engage in advocacy and justice working for reproductive justice, environmental justice, racial justice, for the preservation of democracy. You impact the world in ways you may not be able to quantify through the justice work that you do. And that's important work, work that is grounded in our shared values, encouraged and supported by our shared resources, and sustained by our shared vision. And that vision remains a vital one, even more so in a world where conservatism and fascism are on the rise. I'm going to give you a little preview that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to do some exploring in our services of the links between gender, race, conservatism, politics, culture, and religion. For today, I want to just note two trends. Back in September, the New York Times ran an article detailing that more and more conservative congregations in America are finding young men joining for worship and membership at rates they have not seen in decades. Second, I know we've talked before about the decline of religious life in America. The Pew Research Center studies are kind of the basis for our knowledge of that decline, and they recently released a new sort of installation, if you will, of the study that indicates that numbers are now holding steady. That decline is kind of leveling off. That same study indicates that Unitarian Universalists remain a small percentage. Less than 2% of the population identifies as Unitarian Universalist. Small but mighty, small but vital. Vital both in terms of having vitality and vital in terms of needed. I absolutely believe that the world needs liberal, progressive, living religion. We need institutions that center themselves around boundless love for all people, not just a chosen group. We need institutions that admit for mystery, but are absolutely grounded in science and rational thought. We need institutions that believe in the possibility of change and growth and that work for justice and equity. We need institutions that do all of this and are also religious institutions. I believe that. We need communities that ask us to live into our highest ideals, that encourage our purpose and passion, that provide a lifelong home, a welcome and celebration of our wholeness, not just a part of us, that allow our questions and our wonderings and our failures and our successes. And I don't know of any other organization that brings all of that together. The religious, the spiritual, the justice, the celebration, the hope, the love. I certainly don't belong to any other group that doesn't just allow but encourages my whole self, my explorations, my mistakes in quite the same way as this place does. Now, I am not someone given to a lot of hyperbole, maybe sometimes, but not often. I generally say what I mean, and I don't tend to exaggerate that much. So I say this following phrase because I genuinely believe it. Unitarian Universalism changes lives, and Unitarian Universalism can save lives. Sometimes we know that it has. Perhaps we know a fellow congregant who has struggled, and the comfort and hope and welcome they have found here has changed their movement through their own life. Sometimes we're pretty sure that we know that it has. Maybe we are pretty sure that our work with the aging folks or immigrants or citizens for swimming has altered the trajectory of a life for the better. And sometimes we have no idea who watched that sermon or that music online and felt seen and known in a new way. No idea what neighbor heard us declare our principles at the school board meeting and realized that they or their children were not alone. No idea what collective good has been achieved in an entirely different state because we share our UU values and we participate in a national movement of Unitarian Universalism. Each of us is here because we believe in this. I gesture to this. We believe in religious community, in small community, in self-improvement, in justice work, in love, in empathy, in care. Each of us is here answering the call of love to become the best version of ourselves, to learn better to care for one another, to practice and learn and continue to change the world. Each of us is here, a distinct and unique thread in the larger woven tapestry of this congregation's past, present, and future. I want to leave you, though, with one quote from Mark Morrison Reed, who wrote, oh, the children are in, that's why it got noisy. The central task of religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the community that assures us that we are not struggling on our own. Religious community is essential. For alone, our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed.